Let's make a jungle base for our Seraphon army. I'm going to be using the toilet paper and glue method for this water effect. To create this pool, the first thing I need to do is break up some cork into little bits of pieces. I'll then glue these down to make a perimeter. I don't want the perimeter to be too tall. I just want it to look like it's a small pool nearly flush with the level of the base. I have the one sticking up here in the middle. I feel that'd be a rock sticking up in the middle of the pool. I had originally planned on making this a rocky base, but after I looked at it, I thought my Seraphon are the army of order, and they should be bringing life back to the game of Sigmar. I'm going to have them try to be on lush green bases as much as I can. Just break pieces up and see what works. That'll be a pretty good perimeter for a little pool of water. The Carnosaur will be standing over it like that. Now with it still like this, we're just going to take some CA glue and glue it down. Again, you don't have to get this perfect. There you go. If you have a carrying case or a box that you're going to carry your miniatures in, make sure you check that they'll fit before you go fidgeting with your bases and you make it too tall or something. So always check your box first. Okay, next I'm going to firm that up with a little bit of baking soda. I just keep a cheap Tupperware bin of baking soda on hand, and I've got some really cheap crazy glue. It comes 2 bottles for $1. Feel free to kind of move the base around to get the glue everywhere it needs to be. Anyway, you just keep repeating this until you've got all of your necessary areas hardened with crazy glue. If you've got any extra glue laying around, just sprinkle on the baking soda where you got the wet glue. What we need for the toilet paper water is white glue. This is woodworking glue, preferably one that dries clear. A little cup with some water in it. You don't need too much water. And some toilet paper. What we're going for is about 2 or 3 layers of toilet paper in there, and water and glue in between each layer of toilet paper. I've got this old brush here. You can kind of see it's got these cheap plastic type bristles, but I swear it's the best brush for this. The bristles are stiff enough that they can push the paper into the glue mix. The amount of glue and water mix that you need is really up to you. I have it about, 60-40 glue to water. Get it so it spreads pretty easily, basically. First wet the whole thing in glue and water. I'm going to get it everywhere. This whole area in here with glue and water. Then we take some toilet paper. In total, we'll have about just 3 or 4 layers of toilet paper. If you got thicker toilet paper, like double ply or something, you won't need as much. More glue and water, and just tap it into the toilet paper. We'll put down another layer of toilet paper. This is basically, it's like paper mache. So if you've ever done paper mache, it's a very similar process to that, but not quite as messy. Now if you're doing like a big area, when you're tapping, you could kind of make waves. It's my 3rd layer, and it looks good after 3, so I'm going to stop. What we're looking for is just some random stippling with your brush here. When it dries, it's going to look like water. Trust me. You're going to have to paint it, of course, but the texture-wise, it's going to look like water. Well, there you go. You can see it's got some texture on the pool area. When it dries, those will all look like little waves and ripples in the water, and then once we paint it, it's going to look great. Now, if you painted it really slimy green, it'd make a really wonderful bog or cesspool for your orcs and stuff. Okay, let's let it sit for 24 hours. Here's a test piece where I used the toilet paper and glue to make the water effects. I used the MSP paints, turf green and oceanic blue, mixed a little more green to blue, maybe 2 to 1, and a little bit of water. I'm just going to do the whole thing. I'll come back with a little contrast Talosar blue and just push that into it to make it a little more blue in some areas. So I highly recommend making some test pieces like this. I wrote my recipe on the back, and it's a good way to remember, and since it's wood, it's not gonna fall apart and get broken. It's pretty handy to keep laying around. So I'm just adding some water. Probably shouldn't be stirring this with my brush. If you care for your brushes, stir with something else. It's kind of a boggy green, which is good. It's a jungle, but I want a little more blue than that. You don't have to mix your colors up perfectly. If you get kind of a swirl in there, it's good, because when you're painting, you won't be this even color. So that's good, especially for like doing water and stuff. If you're doing dirt or anything like that too, it's good to have a few colors mixed together unevenly. Some things need to be splotchy. You ever look at the water? Some parts are brighter, some parts are darker. You ever look at dirt? Some parts are brighter, some parts are darker. Wow, I made way too much water. I made way too much paint. If you have a wet palette, I highly recommend using it. I have one, I love it, it's great. Forgot to use it. And there I've got some water. Once it's dry, I'll put just a dab of this contrast blue just in a few spots to make a few spots look darker and therefore look deeper. This contrast Carnosaur blue is a pretty color, but you have to shake the crap out of it and then use it and then shake the crap out of it again because it settles really quick. I added some BBs in there. Hear that? I'm just going to dab some on to make some areas appear a little deeper. So by having this kind of cool mixed green-blue undercoat, and kind of just going over with a little bit of the Carnosaur blue, you can still see some of the undercolor. It's going to make it look like a nice jungle pool. I will be using some aquarium plants here to jungleify, to make my base more jungly. I use the aquarium plants on these bases as well. So putting on the Carnosaur's base will tie the whole army together. I'm just going to attach them with crazy glue for now. There's going to be glue that's going to become water later, and that'll help keep them in place as well. If you had a little drill, you could probably drill a little hole and then push these into the hole. That might make them stand up better. I guess I could use a push pin to make a hole. I'm also going to add a pinch of baking soda over here, just to make a little mound. And then I'm going to push my plant into that mound and then drip a little bit of crazy glue onto it. So while you're doing this, keep checking where your Carnosaur is going to be. Don't need a lot of the baking soda, you just need a little mound. Push in your plant, put the crazy glue right on the stem of the plant and it'll drip down into the baking soda. Go back later and just firm up the rest. When you're using the plants, try to pick plants of different heights and slightly different color variations, and that'll give you some good contrast. It's gonna look like that. Him on there like that. These are the colors that I'll be using to do the original dirt floor of my jungle base. I use an old, somewhat beat up brush for applying the texture paints. If you get a little bit on the plants, don't worry. It's a jungle, stuff splatters. If anyone knows another good texture paint, please recommend that down below. I've only ever used this Agrland Badlands. I'd like to try some more. I really like getting everyone's comments. I really enjoy reading them. Kind of makes it fun. It's nice to know that someone out there is enjoying it too. So thank you very much to everyone that's commented so far. I really appreciate it. It's nice to know you're not alone out there, especially in these times when we can't always go out and meet our friends as much as we used to. This white section here, I'm going to not touch. That's where the Carnosaur's base will be glued down. And once I've glued it down, I'll come back in and just kind of touch up that one spot. We have some randomly mixed up Mornfang Brown and Ushapti Bone. I'm going to be putting that on the stony areas here. And so I needed to match a color that would look pretty similar to Agrland Badlands. While it's wet, I'm going to take a little bit of Rhinox hide and just dabble that in on some spots. Just a little bit here and there. Just dabble some on. Off screen, I dry brushed the water with a little bit of pure white. It ties the middle area in with the edges that had been left white before. I painted the rock gray with dabs of red and blue, and then a wash of Nuln oil. I put an Agrax Earthshade wash over the rest of the base.
And check out this stuff. This is the good greens. Oh yeah.
This is train grass, and I've mixed a few different colors together. So for this, I've got my old trusty beater brush, some pre-mixed PVA glue and water, grass pre-mixed in this old tube. Now we're just going to put some on. I don't want to do the whole thing, but I do want to do a lot of it. And then we just pour some of this onto there. Knock it off just yet. I'm going to turn, add some more, and give it a few minutes to sit. Then I'll knock off the extra. Okay, I think I'm ready for a little more green stuff. That's how it's looking. I'm adding the glue and water mix to the watery areas, and this will make this area look shiny, and it will help keep the water plants in place. I'm going to need to put 2 or 3 coats of this glue on down here, but you got to let it dry thoroughly before you put the next coat on. Glue on where I like it, and him where I like him. Ooh, and let's apply some pressure. That looks like a pretty nice jungle base to me. Pretty happy with that. Once the glue in that pond's dry, all I have to do is touch up around where his foot is there, and he'll be all done. Roar! The water's all dry. So now I just have to blend this unpainted part of the base into the rest of the base. I'm going to clean up just lightly this unpainted area. I'm really happy with the way this jungle base has turned out. By just applying 2 simple techniques, I could get a really nice base. The first technique is the cork and baking soda just to build up layers on the base. The second technique is the toilet paper and glue to get a nice water texture. By using those 2 techniques and adding plants from an aquarium, I got a really nice tabletop ready jungle base. If you're trying to make a base that's going to be prize winning beautiful, you might want to do something more. But for tabletop ready, I think this looks sweet. This is a really simple base to make. You can do this. Give it a shot. If you've got any questions, put them down in the comments below. I love getting them, and I always read them. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate the views and all the support. Stay safe, keep enjoying the hobby, and I'll see you next time. Roar.